Welcome back to Coffee with Carl. You know, since last we spoke, we're thinking out of the box here, trying to get out of the nothing box. We talked about work. Think about it from the point of view of politics. We very often hear politicians speaking about the problem of high unemployment and so on. Actually, the reality is, it's not a problem, it's a conclusion. It's what everything in the current social structure is aiming towards without really knowing it. It's out of control. But when you look at what think tanks are doing for these politicians, none of them actually question the meaning of work. So yeah, again, it's another thing that they can't afford to do, because then you find yourself questioning assumptions, and once you start questioning one, you've got to question others, and so on and so on. So we're talking about the nothing box. It reminds me of a joke. It's not that funny, but the body's at work. The body's at war with itself. Each part is wishing to reign supreme. Well, however that joke finishes, one can see that the nothing box has won that war. Very little else it seems to dominate in our lives. It's a scary thought that it has such an influence. Now, right at the beginning, I said that exploring these assumptions means that sometimes you have to face up to things that you're naturally averse to. Well, the kinds of things we're talking about here are actually inscribed in the Bible. It seems an odd thing to say. I can hear some of you shuddering already. But this chap Swedenborg that I was referring to, he actually teaches that whenever the word Egypt appears in the Bible, what you should think of is the natural mind, and Pharaoh, the ruler of the natural mind. So now think about that incident in Exodus, right at the beginning, where Moses goes to Pharaoh and he says, "Let my people go." What's actually happening there? There's another kind of mind. It's not just the natural mind that needs space to breathe. So he says to Pharaoh, "Let my people go for a 3 days journey into the wilderness to worship." Here what we should be thinking is that access is wanted to some other way of thinking. And Pharaoh's reply is actually quite relevant to what we've been saying. He more or less says, "So, you want to go out in the desert, do you, to worship your God? I'll tell you what I'll do. You know that you make bricks for me, and I supply you with the straw to do it. Well, now you can supply yourself. You won't have time to think about anything else. You'll be so busy looking for the straw to make the bricks, and I want the same number of bricks as before. You'll forget all about this other kind of mind." And in a way, there's a sort of prophecy of the modern world. We work, and it's what I said at the beginning. We can't afford to think out of the box. We're so caught up in this work ethic that itself is suicidal that we can hardly breathe. So, really, by the nothing box winning the war, we've kind of stifled ourselves. I know I said I was going to talk about relativity theory, but thinking about this, it's made me conscious of how little there is that we can actually free ourselves from. In fact, in the closing pages of Kant's little book, he writes that we have put the marker stones in place. That is, this is as much as we can know, and those marker stones are like the visible stone henges of the nothing box. Well, we've put them in place and we'll be satisfied to go that far and no further. Well, that's a red rag to a bull, isn't it? How many people like being told that's as far as you can go? That's it. There is no more. That's really what he succeeded in doing. And that, in a way, put science on the map, or natural philosophy, as it was called then. But in putting those stones in place, he said some other interesting things. Now, I've mentioned the higher mind, or the Israelites going out into the desert to worship. Actually, these are referred to, back in those days, as psychology, when the word psyche meant butterfly. And so you try to imagine that this higher mind is a little bit like something emerging from this natural mind. Well, what Kant said is we'll only be satisfied with styptic knowledge and then re-unfold the butterfly wings and be satisfied with just this worm life, I suppose you'd call it. And you put your walls in place, and here we are, dissatisfied. Because in sowing the seeds for the Enlightenment, those comments have actually planted the seeds of dissatisfaction, of discontent, from the beginning. And it informs it all the way through. So I'll leave relativity theory till next time. I hope this has made this idea of questioning assumptions something a bit more solid than mere philosophical abstraction. So cheers.